Okay, so I'm recording now. Do you have any impressions at all of this match or gameplay in general that you want to share with me?
Um, no, I guess I can just I'll give you an empty slate for now.
Yeah, that's totally fine. Not sure if you have any impressions of your own issues or anything like that. How long have you been playing?
So I started playing, I would say 2 years ago is when I really started to try to improve, intentionally. Before I think I just played played Smash every couple months because I thought it was cool, fun esport to watch.
Mm-hmm.
But that's when I started working for BTS, and I got to meet a lot of the pros and was inspired just to learn to play melee really beautifully
Oh yeah.
and
So
to
you
try and
work
get
for
a lot
BTS right
better.
now?
I'm a contractor, so
Okay.
I'm at the events, but not there full time.
Yeah,
So
that makes sense.
and yeah, I just finished school this past year, so I'm able to put a lot more time into hobbies right now, especially with quarantine going on.
Yeah,
You know,
absolutely.
I don't have any work, so yeah, this was perfect timing for me. And yeah, so 2 years, and I think like 6 months after, 5 months after is when I learned about your lessons and was like, oh, I should try to sign up for that. So it's been like 18 months.
Yeah.
I
Sick.
was on your wait list. So
Yeah. Oh, that's sick.
yeah.
Um.
Um,
Okay. Cool. Um. That is useful to know. Okay. Well, if you don't have anything to tell me, I'm gonna go ahead and watch. But the one thing I'll ask is that you also pay very close attention because I want to see what you're currently capable of seeing. You know, when you watch some melee,
okay, sure.
because I think people don't really realize it. But honestly, like just hearing what someone's impressions are of
Hmm.
like when we watch the same thing, and then telling them my impressions, I feel like both like I learn very quickly what the other person does and doesn't realize, and then
Mm,
they learn
okay,
very quickly how they should be thinking about things.
great,
Yeah, you know what
great.
I mean.
Yeah, no, exactly,
Sick.
exactly. I might. I'm been concerned that I've been kind of misdiagnosing my issues for a good chunk of time now.
Mm-hmm.
So, um, yeah, I'm curious to hear what you think.
Yeah, I am too. So I'm gonna go ahead and hit play. You are
Okay,
Falco, correct? I
that's
assume.
correct.
Cool.
Yeah.
Oh, were you trying to scar jump?
Yes.
I understand. Huh. I think I'm gonna watch the whole match probably.
Okay.
Oh, you got your scar jump. Is this on LAN or net play, by the way?
No, this is net play.
Okay,
Yeah, this was from a few days ago.
that's good to know. Hmm. Now watching you has been pretty interesting though. Hey. Did you know Randall was there?
No, I didn't. So I kind of just was like, yeah,
You knew.
I was I was dead. Yeah,
So
I actually like looked away from my screen for a second, and when I looked back,
that's
I
very
thought,
funny.
oh wait, I'm alive.
Okay, interesting. Okay, so what do you see when you watch this?
Um, so I see a lot of me having a game plan against Fox, try and trying to sort of just um, autopilot execute it, and I don't really react to what my opponent's doing a lot. That I think like you'll see it when I miss really obvious hit confirms.
Yeah,
Um,
so that's pretty important. So hit confirms. Let's talk about that. I'm very
okay,
very glad you said that. So what are your thoughts on your hit confirms?
on my hit confirms,
Yeah.
they're almost like non-existent.
Yeah, I agree. You're not confirming your hits at all. So you're
Okay,
familiar with the phrase "hit confirmed" though, which is saves me a lot of trouble.
okay,
So it's important to note that not every situation is hit confirmable,
okay.
right? So you can't like react to everything all the time, but
Mhm.
a lot of the situations that you got hits in, you definitely could have confirmed and didn't, and
Hmm.
that was actually one of the number one things I noticed. So that's actually kind of hype that you said that. Um,
Great.
do you have any idea why your hit confirms aren't good? Like, is that something you've thought about or consciously
Yeah.
tried to focus on, or?
Um, yeah. So it's been something the past couple months that I've been noticing, and I don't really know how to improve it. I would say,
Okay, so you've noticed it but unsure how to fix.
yeah, I'm not, yeah, I'm not exactly sure how to get out of the woods, so to speak. So yeah,
Sure. Well, I can give you some very easy to implement advice, I think. So with
okay,
hit confirming, I mean, there's like two elements essentially. One is just raw whether or not it's reactable. You know, some
yeah,
situations you simply can't react, and that's okay, and some you can. And then if that's the case, then literally all it comes down to is reacting, right? Does that make sense?
sorry, could you repeat it one more time?
Yeah, sure. Um, are the sounds from my window being open bothering you by any chance?
No, no, I can't hear any of that. It's just that I just didn't
No,
understand.
no, it's
That's
okay. So I'm just saying the first aspect of it is just, some situations are just strictly reactable and it doesn't require any more like finesse or knowledge than that. Like it's just you could have reacted and you need to get yourself to the point where you're comfortable reacting, right?
okay.
So just on a base level, does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. And then the other aspect of hit confirms that I think is important is awareness. So sometimes you can only confirm a hit because you were aware of what your opponent was doing in that moment or what they were likely to be doing. And then be. Sorry, I'm just waiting. Okay.
Sorry.
But yeah, anyway,
Oh,
so does that make sense that like the other aspect is like, sure, it's not maybe strictly reactable by itself. Like maybe you can't just see the move hit and then know, but maybe, you know, if I see the fox whiff up tilt right as I downer at him, I know I'm reacting to the up tilt whiffing, and that makes me know my downer is going to hit. So I don't need to react to the downer hitting. I can just be aware that I'm whiff punishing him.
okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
And sometimes the awareness is significantly more complex than that. That was just like, a pretty basic example.
Yeah.
But um, you'll see a lot of situations in this match when we go back and watch where your hit confirms were off, and we can talk about like how you could work on them.
Okay.
But I just want to create that structure for you.
Okay.
So what else did you notice? Or was that, the main thing?
The other things are, just um, there's some there's some issues with my punish game, like the directions I choose to wave dash out of shine.
Yeah, and that's very
Um,
related to hit confirming, I think.
okay,
Because if you
yeah,
confirm that the shine is going to hit, you would be confident in wave dashing in that direction,
yeah. It seems like a lot of times I've built in this muscle memory to aerial shine wave dash back on a shield
Yes.
to make create safe pressure. But a lot of times when I do it, it's completely unnecessary because my shine hit,
Yeah.
and yeah, so
But the thing there is, so in terms of it being reactable, if they shield your down air and then the shine
mhm,
hits, you can't react to whether or not the shine hit and then choose your wave dash direction.
okay.
That's not like humanly possible, you know?
Yeah, so it'd have to be the down air coming before
Yeah,
it
but
or
now if the
the
downer hits, then there's definitely no reason to wave dash the wrong way, right?
yeah.
Yeah. So, there's levels there. So, yeah, I think that's a good note. I think Punish Game in general, it's pretty clear to me that, like, there's just situations you weren't ready for or hadn't thought about, and that's okay. And the
Okay.
solution is just simply to, like, pause the video and you start asking yourself, okay, what should I have done versus the DI he did? And then also, what other things could have happened that I would have needed to be ready for, right?
Okay.
And then if you do that with, 1,000 punish situations, and then you start looking for them in your games and you practice them, like, you can see how that would improve pretty quickly, right?
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so we got punish game, we got hit confirms. Anything else?
Um, I'd say that my understanding of neutral is pretty bare bones. I basically try to close the gap between me and my opponent. As Falco, normally I'm shooting lasers to close that gap, and then I just go for it. And I don't
So what
know
does
if
go
what
for it mean in this case?
go for it means I'm gonna. So I've been in this situation with Fox where when I close the gap and I shoot a laser at him, he turns around and he up tilts.
Mm-hmm.
So I throw in a little stutter step and then go for it. Throw it an approaching aerial.
Aha,
Or
so go for it usually means approaching downer,
okay, yeah,
right?
approaching
So, like,
down
let's
there
be
into
specific, right?
shine.
Because I think conceptually you're right, but I think something, so this is useful just to keep in mind. As
Yeah.
much as possible, you always want to try to have a one-to-one between, like, how you feel and, like, the in-game representation of that.
So what it actually looks like. Okay,
Yes,
so
because I agree, you were just going for it. But in this game, go for it pretty much always meant rising downer approach.
yeah, okay,
Does that
that's
match
fair.
up with how
That
you...
I think that matches up fine. Yeah,
Cool,
yeah.
cool.
Um, so yeah, that's pretty much my neutral. It's very rare for there to be another approach. The
Yes.
timing I've worked on the timing in terms of like adding the stutter step, or maybe sometimes like overshooting the down air
Uh-huh.
or like laser and then down air in place, but it's still a down air, and
It's still usually pretty early.
it's still very early, um, and yeah, that's something that I definitely need to fix. And then I'm also curious, like how I can expand my just neutral like understanding to not have it be so.
Well, I mean, I feel like I understand how you feel, but let's talk about it kind of in general. If
Okay.
someone were to tell you, all right, all I've kind of got is I laser him, then I kind of try to get close to him, then I try to down air him. And
Yeah.
that's kind of like the TLDR on what you told me, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Obviously, like, there's slightly more to it than that when you're playing, but, like, that's the, like, very rough summary. So, like, if someone
Yeah.
came up to you and said, that's all I've got versus Fox, and they're like, well, how do I get better? What would you even say to them?
I would probably say, well, maybe we should start with having more than one plan, one move. You have like a whole kit of moves.
Yeah. So, I mean,
So,
you could, and to generalize what you just said, you can just do anything, right?
hmm
Like, you could literally just do anything. And I think that people frequently forget this when they play Melee. There was a point in time where I was playing with one of my friends and they wanted advice. And I was telling them that they were being, like, extremely repetitive in certain spots. And they were like, I just don't know what else to do instead. And I was like, dude, just, like, throw your controller on the ground and whatever input comes out is probably better than whatever you were doing, you know?
Okay.
Like, and of course I don't mean
Alright.
literally, but just like the
I
idea that
understand. Yeah.
you have. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I understand. You're just saying you could do anything else other than what you're
Yeah,
doing.
you could just do anything, and like I think that is very lost on most melee players. So like, you're saying, okay, I laser and then I stutter step and then I downer at it. Sometimes I overshoot it, sometimes I don't, but it's still a rising downer. And it's like, okay, well, there's so many steps to that. So like, what if before, instead of like go back to the beginning? What if you just never shot the laser in the first place? Or what if you lasered and then didn't stutter step? You lasered and then just shot another laser. Have you ever tried just lasering and then full hopping at him? Have you tried, laser, 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 and then downer? Have you tried, maybe, okay, so let's get to the next step. So you laser and you stutter step, and then instead of downering, just continue to dash dance. Or maybe you stutter step and then just start dashing towards him on the ground and go for a running shine,
Hmm.
And then when it comes to the downer, what about early downer? What about late downer? What about in the middle downer, like approaching but you drift back? What about what if you replace the downer with a laser sometimes, Does
Okay.
that kind of make sense?
Oh yeah. No,
Yeah.
definitely.
And it's like there's all these things at your disposal. And I'm not saying, at your current skill level you should be able to parse all of them and pick the best ones, but just like if you find yourself playing the exact same way all the time and you really don't know what to do, like there's just literally nothing stopping you from just doing a bunch of things and seeing what happens and learning from it.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yep.
Are you familiar with any kind of like machine learning, neural network type stuff?
I don't think so.
Okay, I was just curious. It would have
Yeah.
been an easy reference, but regardless, you get the idea of kind of like empirically just learning from your actions with no prior like context or understanding, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you've kind of built this structure for yourself, but it's like you don't have to be limited to it,
Okay.
Does this make sense?
Yeah.
Cool. And of course, I'm gonna tell you much more specifically what I think you should be doing, but I just
Okay.
wanted to get the idea across that like maybe there's a whole world of options open to you, even if you have no clue what they are or why you should do them. Like melee is simple in the sense that like in any given situation, there's few enough options, I think, that you could literally list them out and try all of them,
Yeah.
Does this make sense?
Yes.
Awesome. Give me 1 second.
Okay.
Do you happen to know what time we started talking, by the way? Ish.
Yeah. It's been 21 minutes.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure I budget time well in terms of talking to you generally versus watching your VOD.
Okay. Okay.
Cool. So,
Yeah. 21 and a half minutes.
okay, great. So I can work with that. So anyway, going back to the whole neutral thing. So
Yes.
what's the problem? What's even the problem with just like down airing, especially rising? What's even the issue with that? Because like if it was just a really good strategy, even if it was simple, that wouldn't make it bad, right?
Yeah, I agree. I think the problem with it is that it loses to quite a few things.
Yeah, it loses to a lot of things, right?
Yeah.
That's a great reason. So then that brings us to, so this is the first time that when talking about options, we've brought in another variable, which is the opponent, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I think that that's a very big thing that people don't realize. So like in all our discussion, not once have we said, what is the fox doing? Or how does the fox deal with this, right?
Yeah.
So, but then you just brought up exactly the point I want, which is you're saying, oh, well, it loses to a lot of things. So then, so if down air loses to a lot of things, we have to ask ourselves, what are those things? What could the fox be doing? And then if you start thinking about what the fox could be doing, then maybe we can start coming up with answers to it, right?
Okay.
So do you see what I'm getting at here?
Yes.
Cool. So essentially the baseline difference between how people think about neutral at a lower level versus a higher level is that at a higher level, if you just think about, very simply, what do I think my opponent will do and how can I counter that? that's already significantly better than just kind of playing the game doing what you want to do. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So I can always tell I'm talking to like a higher level player when like their first way of approaching a situation or asking a question is like, hey, they're doing this. What do I do about this?
Okay.
Cool. So, the problem with Downer then is that it's risky. There are many ways for them to beat it. And also, something important is that even though Downer is sometimes high reward, it's not even always a high reward option, right?
Okay.
So, can you think of any times where doing a rising Downer approach would not get you that much even if it hit?
Yeah, when it's above a certain percentage, it's just going to lead to a tech chase scenario, and then there's like DI that they can do that would make it even harder for me to follow up.
Sure, I feel like a very, very high percent, maybe. If they're at like
Okay.
120, down air might not lead to much, right?
Yeah.
There's also another situation, though. Kind of the opposite of that one.
Oh, okay. Very low percent.
Yeah, so what happens if you rising down air a fox and he's at 10%?
So he could just crouch and eat the hit at, and if he like jumps into it, he's gonna land before me.
Okay, so there's the jumping into it. I don't
Yeah,
even think the crouch is relevant. If you hit like a rising, full momentum approaching down air, I mean, you might just fly past him and not be able to combo it, right?
Yeah, just like kind of hit him in the head and fly by, and then
that doesn't get you anything. And also, if you were even on top of him, if it's at 10% and you do a rising down air, he can just shine before you can. He doesn't have to like crouch it or anything,
Oh, okay.
Right, just because it's rising, so it's like he's gonna run out of hit stun before you like fastball, L cancel, etc.
So I just sort of net him a free opening for this really low percent down air. Okay.
And then on top of that, we go back to what you said, which is jumping into it. So then on top of it being potentially risky and having many ways to counterplay, it's also not even high reward in a lot of instances.
Okay.
So suddenly we put all these things together and it's like, okay, well, even if, we don't know what else to do, we can at least see that just doing this is not enough, right?
Yes.
And then that's where we build from there. Because, obviously if I'd asked you before we even talked, hey, should you be doing things besides downer? You'd be like, well, yeah, of course. But, I'm kind of trying to show you how we can build from the ground up to find, good reasoning for that, right?
Yeah.
So that takes us back to percent. So I feel like your neutral game, I actually kind of liked how you were playing a lot of the times. It's just the problem is that everything good you did just ended up leading to a downer situation, and that's just not always the best solution.
Okay.
But I liked how you were spacing. I liked how you were playing around him. It's just you didn't really have any mix-ups or ways of thinking about percent. When Fox is at 0, I'm almost never thinking about downer. I'm thinking about back air, fully spaced. I'm thinking about hitting him out of the air where it's safe, up tilt in air. Thinking about shine, thinking about grab, thinking about laser. Do all those make sense?
Yes.
Yeah. Downer is just really not on the table for me. The only downer that I'm thinking is maybe late downer.
Late downer, you said?
Yeah, because a late downer can convert to shine even at 0, right?
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yep.
Cool. So, we think about percents. And I think you'll realize what I was saying earlier about not really thinking about the opponent's side of options, because we're going to watch this and we're going to pause and be like, what did you think he was going to do there when you downer? And you're going to realize, well, you didn't particularly think he was going to do an option that lost to downer. It's just that's all you had left in your toolkit,
Okay.
Does this make sense?
Yeah.
Cool. Do you think when you're playing that you actively think about what the opponent will do and then how to counter it when you're doing something?
So the only thing I think about when it comes to that is what they'll do when they get hit by my laser, and that's it.
Okay. Hey, that's a pretty good one though.
Okay.
I mean, that's a great spot to do it, but ideally you do that the entire game, right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah, that's something that I've been doing the past couple months, and it's helped a lot against every character. Just watching what they do after they get hit by a laser. And um, so should I go into what I would do when I'm watching a fox, or is that kind of
No, I'm happy to listen
pushing
if
that
you
further?
have thoughts that you think are worth sharing.
Okay. So if the fox really doesn't do anything, then I just go in, and I'm like, all right, he doesn't really have a plan against my laser, so um, I'm just gonna abuse abuse the crap out of it and laser him a lot,
Mm-hmm.
and it's gonna probably get annoying, and I should be able to win. um, but yeah, if the fox does have a plan, then usually I'll have some. I'll try to adapt to it, and so when the fox spams a lot of take laser turnaround up tilt, then I'll laser dash back a lot. There's something I've seen Mango do a ton.
Mm-hmm.
When the fox takes laser dashbacks, then you know I'll try to do a lot more approaching lasers after my initial laser. That's something I learned playing against Marth.
Yeah, that
um,
makes sense.
yeah, and uh, one thing I do struggle with is when foxes take the laser and then they just full hop. Um, uh, I struggle a lot with a full hoppy fox in general, actually.
I think that's pretty
Um,
normal.
okay. Yeah, and then this is something I learned from Kalindi, but he said this that uh, fox can take laser and approach you, but foxes really rarely ever do that to me. But if it does happen, I do have one friend who does that, and we practice sometimes. I will just down air in place after
Yeah.
lasering it just to stuff him out. So that's pretty much my game plan against fox is see what he does when he gets hit by a laser and then do stuff.
Yeah.
But as we've already talked about, um, I'm I'm not great at reacting, and so a lot of times it does turn into guessing, and that's I like if I'm playing against a fox and I'm watching what he does to lasers, and he's force stalking me, I feel like I'm happy because I'm like, hey, I'm reacting to what's happening, even though he's destroying me. But if I'm playing against someone and I'm just guessing the whole time, even if I'm winning, I'm like, man, I'm playing really crappy right now.
Mm-hmm.
So that's I guess to kind of paint a picture of my goals. That's sort of how I think about playing good versus playing really poorly.
Sure.
So yeah, I think against this fox, um, I I I don't think I was really even watching what he was doing to laser, so I felt like yeah, this is not really going very well. But anyway, yeah, anything else I should shed light on, or is that pretty
No,
sufficient?
I was just gonna say that like I think an important distinction in how you should be thinking about it is like
Mm-hmm.
uh, worst players will generally do the exact same things, every time. But like a
Mm-hmm.
lot of these situations, it's not sufficient to like see what someone does and then just adapt to it and start like hello.
Sorry, that's my cat.
No, it's okay. Oh, okay. That's okay.
Sorry for the interruption.
No, it's fine. Um, but yeah, it's not sufficient to just like take into account what they're doing and then just try to
Mm-hmm.
counter it, even though that can get you lots of wins. I think the
Mm-hmm.
ideal is that like you take a situation and think about all the things they could do and come up with a good way for you to play it in terms of a game plan that deals with everything effectively.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Because, what if you played me and the first time I took a laser, I dash back, and the second time I
Mm-hmm.
took a laser, I dash back, and then you're like, all right, this guy's just going to keep dashing back. I'm going to approaching laser him. And then the third time I take the laser and I up tilt, and then you get hit and I zero to death you.
Yeah.
All right? And, if the game were that simple, then, like, we wouldn't all be playing it still. Does that make sense?
Yeah, fair enough.
So I want you to start thinking about it in terms of, I guess I would use the phrase like option sets, and like think of it in terms of a whole holistic game plan, right? Like how does Falco want to go about beating Fox? Like, sure, I mean he can do all these things and I can have counters to it, but if the game just came down to that kind of RPS, then like every matchup would simply be determined by like who has better risk reward in one or two RPS situations, you know? But the game is a lot more complex than that because usually there's not just 3 options, there's like 10 options. And usually the risk reward is not clear because at different percents and different stage positions and at different spacings, you can create all sorts of different risk reward depending on like how you choose to set up reactions and what you can only react to and what you can only guess against, you know, stuff like that. Does that make sense?
I think so. Could you repeat it one more time?
Sure. I mean, the gist of it is just that I'm saying that the game is very complex and that there's a lot more going on than generally a simple RPS. Okay. And I think the game is kind of taught as a simple RPS, which isn't good. You are going to be guessing a lot when you play Melee, but the guessing should be very informed based on like many factors. Not simply like, okay, I laser you, and then we do this. And then we do this 10 times, and then whoever guesses right more times wins. You know, we could just play rock, paper, scissors if we really felt like it.
Right.
And that's not a knock on you. It's more just like a general statement about like, that's how everyone really talks about it, but it really doesn't paint the full picture at all.
No, that's really helpful.
You know, because if it was that easy, then I mean, like, if you played me right now, and you guessed right 3 or 4 times, like, you'd be able to beat me. But, like, the reality is that you would never even get the chance to guess right because of many other reasons, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I guess those many other reasons are what I'm interested in learning about.
Exactly. Just to give you a simple example, if you were to play my Fox, I think you would almost never pin me down with a laser sufficiently to feel like you were meaningfully getting guesses off. Because as Fox, I would be doing everything in my power to avoid all your lasers. I would use the platforms a lot. If I was dealing with lasers, I try to like power shield them. I would, even if I did have to deal with a laser, I would do it at a spacing where I can avoid you after. So I might shield a laser and full hop to a platform at a spacing where you can't hit me. And then inevitably you'd probably misspace or mess up or shoot a bad laser and I'd get close to you. And then I would just be playing on my terms at that point, you know?
Yeah.
So if all you really think about or study is like, okay, I lock you down with a laser, now what? How on earth do you beat someone who like never lets you get in that situation, right?
Yeah, right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. Not to mention that once we did start guessing, you probably don't use enough options or enough layers. So I probably wouldn't even lose the guessing scenarios because the guessing is more layered than just, you know, rock, paper, or scissors, right? So if you're not even guessing on the right set of layers, then like you won't ever even hit me.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
All of it except for the layers part.
So like, just to explain simply, it's like, you know, so your options are like, what do you say? So you approach down air, you laser in place, you stutter step, or you do like an approaching laser, right?
Yep. That's pretty much it.
So let's say I dash back. That beats that already deals with almost all your options immediately, right? And if your only counter to me is approaching lasering, then you approaching laser and I dash back. Well, all you've done is laser me now. So how good are you at playing the next set of mix-ups, right?
Right.
Because maybe lots of Foxes you play, if they get their dash back approaching lasered, they play the next situation really poorly, and then you just rising down at them, right? But let's say you play me, and then you approaching laser my dash back, and try to rising down air, but then I just dash dance grab that down air, right?
Okay.
So like, but if you just try to approaching laser my next dash back, it's like, okay, well like, is that even good risk reward for you? You're just repeatedly doing an option that doesn't get you a hit, but if I call you out for it, you die. Do you see what I mean?
Yes.
So I guess what I'm just trying to get at is that there's a lot going on, and I think that like the more we can delve into that, the better.
That sounds great.
Cool. So let's go back and watch.
Great. Okay.
So we're really going to focus on 3 things. There's hit confirms, there's punish game, and those are the 2 things you mentioned. And the third thing was essentially that all your situations end up with you just down air, right?
Right.
Well, not all, you know, I'm exaggerating. but you get the
Right.
idea.
No, it's definitely a large chunk of them. So
Yeah. So let's watch this. So let's look at this one. So let's say that downer hit. You get literally nothing, right?
right.
Also,
Right.
do you know the frame data on downer? Like, how long does it take to do a downer?
I do not know.
So maybe that's important. Is it just that you don't know any frame data because you haven't looked at it, or you just don't know downer?
I've looked at it before. I just don't remember it by heart. I do know that Nair is going to be more safe on shield
Mm-hmm.
than down air by a couple frames.
Mm-hmm.
Um, at least if it's like a very deep air.
Yeah, but I'm just talking about like the startup frames.
The startup frames for down air.
And if you just don't know, it's okay. I was just kind of trying to get a gauge.
Yeah, no. I'm not sure.
Okay, so do you know the frame data thread?
Frame data thread.
So anytime I want anything in Melee, I type in the character's name and I type Melee frame data, and this Smashboards thread will come up. It'll say data, Sheik hitboxes, Falco hitboxes, whatever. I'm gonna link you this, and you're gonna just have that. I linked it in the current lesson VOD in case anyone else wants it. I still refer to these Smashboards threads. You know, years later, they're my reference for everything. Very useful. So, for reference, your jump squat's 5 frames, and down air is 5 frames. So even the fastest possible down air is 10 frames.
Okay.
And that's the fastest possible one. You know, if you mess up anything at all, it'll be slower.
Yes.
For reference, you know, grab is 7 frames. Jump canceling it makes it 8. So already you have an option that's 2 frames faster and doesn't lose to them shielding.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
So, you know, if I were really thinking that the fox was going to fall directly in front of me and I was at the spacing, I would probably go for a grab over a downer.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
It does. So what would you do after the grab?
I would up throw and then, you know, probably hope for the best. I mean, I don't think you get a ton off up throw versus someone with good defense, but there's like a variety of factors. I mean, not every player has perfect defense. Also, the throw is still safe and gets you guaranteed damage, and I don't think that's to be underrated because, you know, if you can get guaranteed damage up until he's at about 20 or 30, then you kind of unlock options, right? Like your downer becomes way better.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
You could also just back throw him and put him in the corner. That's hardly bad. I mean, you have lots of things. And of course, you know, if I were really to get into this, we could have a discussion about, is trying to punish this even a good idea? So, you know, when you see a fox drop through here, how do you know, like, what he's going to do or if you should punish it, right? Do you see what I mean? Like, that's a complex question in and of itself.
Okay.
So I'm assuming you've heard me talk about reaction points, right?
I've heard about reaction points before. Yeah.
Okay. Well, the TLDR, and I'll go ahead and say this now, is you have about a 15 frame reaction time. Every person's a little different, but that's going to be our approximation of it, right? 15 frames within Melee, by the way. So sometimes people get confused and try to compare it to other stuff, but I'm just talking about within Melee's engine.
Okay.
So, you know, this fox is falling. You know, he could fast fall. He could not fast fall. What else could he do? Give me some other options.
He could right now at this point in the air or when he
Sure, I mean right now is fine.
Okay, so right now he could double jump.
Yeah, so he could double jump, right? What else?
Yeah. He could air dodge onto the platform.
Yeah. I mean, he could air dodge up. He could do an aerial.
Right, he could throw out an aerial.
You can do a variety of aerials, all of which have different startup frames and different lag.
Yeah.
He could fall down and just do nothing. Once he falls down, he could shine. And once he gets to the ground, he could wave land or empty land or, you know, etc., right?
Yeah.
So there's just a shit ton of things that could happen is my point. And
sure.
All of those reasons are the reasons that when you went to down air here, you didn't quite get the timing and he got his shield up, right?
Right.
For what it's worth, I think you were only off by literally a frame.
Okay.
Maybe 2 frames. I don't know if I counted right. But you get the idea, right?
Yeah. It seems like even if my down air did hit,
You get
it would
nothing.
have been that scenario that you pointed out earlier. Yeah.
Yep. So then there's a lot to think about there. Where like a big thing that happens when people get better at melee is like they start realizing that there's a lot of situations that are more ambiguous than they think they are. So to me, it's like the thing I tell people is that one of the best things you can start trying to learn is what is a read and what is a reaction. Because, if you actually knew exactly what that fox was going to do, I actually think that if we practiced it for like even 30 seconds to a minute, you could probably use the down air to punish his landing every single time. Like, I think you would be good enough to do that. But the question is, if you don't actually have the exact read on the fox and you're not sure what you're reacting to, like your timing's not exactly going to be on point. You might be a frame or 2 off. But that frame or 2 off can let him get his shield up or let him spot dodge or whatever. Does that make sense?
I think so.
So, essentially, I'm going to push you to start asking yourself the question, like, was I going for a read? Or what was I reacting to? Or like, hey, if I react to this, maybe you can react to one thing, and that gives you enough information to guess better on the next thing. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So there's a lot of stuff going on there. So then if we watch this clip, I'm curious. I want you to tell me what you think you reacted to last before going for the down air. We can watch it a couple times,
Okay. Okay. I think I reacted to him falling through the platform. I think that's the last thing I reacted to.
Okay. So, do you think you have any clue what your objective was? So you react to him falling through the platform, and then what's your goal? Just to down air his landing?
So I think the goal was to yeah, it seems like the goal was just to down air his landing and initially I think the goal was to dash dance under him being on top of the platform to maybe bait him to come down and then to run underneath the side platform and attack him from the side platform.
Okay. That seems like a reasonable plan. So then I'm going to do something. I'm going to pause it when I see Fox drop through the platform, okay?
Okay.
So this is just when I'm personally reacting.
Okay.
So about right now is when I reacted to the Fox falling through the platform. So just to give you an idea, look when you down aired. So just now is when you started your jump.
Okay.
So do you see how much later that is?
Yes.
So, and that's not to say you down aired at a bad timing. It's more to say that if we're thinking about optimizing how we use our reactions, this point right here where you're about to jump should be based on information you saw 15 frames ago, not based on information you saw 30 frames ago,
Okay. Yes.
So, to me, if you tell me, the last thing I reacted to was Fox dropping through the platform, but that's the timing that you jumped at, I'm like, well, if you're going to jump that late, that means you should be using other information as well. Does that make sense?
Right. So to move up the frames earlier so that I have more time?
Yeah, essentially, like, you got to trust your reactions. And I think it's pretty scary, and even a lot of really good players don't do it that well. So, like, essentially the end goal will be that all your decisions will be based on things you saw 15 frames ago. And, I was doing a lesson with Toph once, and, like, he was clearly trying to react. But then we paused and counted, and I was like, oh, look, you're just using information from 20 frames ago because, like, you were scared that if you waited any longer, it would be too late. Does that make sense?
I see.
But your goal is to move it step by step closer until... Okay. 1 second, sorry.
Okay.
Hello? Sorry, this is the car service thing. Give me 1 second.
Okay, no worries.
Yes, hello. Okay, wonderful. I'm in the middle of something right now. Once I finish, can I take an Uber over and pick it up? So as long as I get there before 5, I'm fine. Okay, thank you so much. I appreciate it. Have a wonderful day. Hey, sorry, I'm back. They're the whole
Okay.
reason that I had to move the lesson up because they were not doing their stuff on time. But
Oh, okay.
yeah. Anyway, the goal is essentially that we want to align your reaction time with your information intake, so that like you are taking in the maximum amount of information before making your decision, so that you can be properly informed.
Okay.
Does that make sense as a concept?
It does.
So
How
it's
do you do that?
How do you do that? I mean,
Yeah.
one, you get a very good innate sense of your reaction time. Um, and you could do that by simply trying to react to things and seeing, how successful you are, right?
Okay.
Like, for example, when I first started playing Melee, I would probably fight a Marth, and when I saw his F smash, I would try to shield it. And then after a bunch of times, it probably never worked, and I was like, man, this sucks. And then I watched VODs, and I saw every time someone shielded a Marth F smash, it looked like they shielded, like, way before I saw the Marth F smash, And then after seeing that, maybe I looked at the frame data, or I tested it myself, and then eventually I came to the conclusion. I don't remember exactly how I did this. I'm just giving sample ideas. But eventually I came to the conclusion that, man, you really can't shield on reaction to a Marth F smashing. It doesn't really work, Does this make sense?
Yeah. So, what were the people in the VODs you were watching reacting to then?
Maybe the spacing. Maybe the Marth wave dashes before he forward smashes. So maybe once they saw the wave dash, they put their shield up. Maybe just it's a spacing where they know F smash could come out, so they shield early. Maybe they're not reacting at all, and they're just hard reading it. I can't say. But the idea is that, like, you use your own intuition, you watch videos, and you look at frame data, and you test things yourself, and you do a combination of all of these things, and you kind of just trust your gut, and you push yourself to react, and then you see what isn't reasonable. And I think you'll start forming like a very, very good instinct for like what you can and can't react to, if that makes sense.
Okay.
What do you think?
I guess I that's something I've never really thought about when watching a VOD. So what I should do when I guess why I can go back and watch this VOD is first I have to determine whether I'm reacting or reading, right? And then if it's a reaction, then I can sort of pause and then just frame by frame see how early or late I was.
Yeah, you can. Or you can just kind of watch in real time and gain some sort of instinct for it, So, like, if we were to watch this, I just want you to look at when the fox drops through and when you downer.
Yeah.
Also, I want to point out, did this fox fast fall for the platform or not?
No.
He didn't, right? So, if we're to compare those, fast falling lands faster than not fast falling. So if you were late on getting to a not fast fall aerial, that means like if he had fast fallen, you certainly would have never got there in time, right?
Yeah, right.
So then we look at all those things and we realize, okay, well, like unrelated to whether or not down air was a good idea, we can just see that your sense for reacting and timing just wasn't really there. And I don't think that requires frame by frame so much as like it's easy for me to see because I already know the timings. For you, you don't already know the timings. So when you see yourself do something, you should just ask, like, hey, what did I think would happen there, What was I looking for? Does that make sense?
Yep.
Cool. And I think that's very tricky, so I don't expect you to, like, sit down for 3 hours and try to figure it out. It's just kind of the awareness that that's even something you should be thinking about will hopefully help you get there, if that makes sense.
Okay. So going back to the original, I guess, three things. The first one being the
hit confirms.
Failure to hit confirms. How just to, I guess, summarize, how is it that I should be practicing? You said you were gonna offer
Oh
like
yeah. Well, let's
a
get. I
few.
just want to get through this one scenario first
Oh, okay, okay. I'm sorry.
because I think this scenario is very reflective of like a. It's like a good insight into like all these problems put together. You know.
Great. Okay,
Does
great.
that make
Sorry.
sense? Because we're talking about
Yeah.
reactions and we're talking about like what are you looking for, and we're talking about what his options are. Remember earlier we're like, yeah, you should think about it in terms of his options, and then suddenly we would do that and we realize, oh, well, the down air doesn't make sense at that timing, right?
Okay, I see.
So I guess I'm kind of treating it like an exercise just to get you thinking about the right things.
Yeah, you're very Socratic.
Yeah, you could certainly say that.
Okay, all right, then let's continue.
Yeah. For reference, by the way, I see his back air up here, right?
Yes.
So if you were to react right now, this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. And also, back air is his laggiest aerial, which maybe isn't something you know frame data wise.
I did not know that.
Back air has 10 frames of lag. So if a fox starts a back air this high in the air, and I know like he has to land, I can probably grab it on reaction every single time. But if he were to wait till about here to back air, I would probably never try to reactively grab that. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So all of these pieces of information are things that I'm personally thinking about when I'm playing. So I just want to point them out to you and get you to start thinking about them. And, you know, start thinking about frame data. It's like, you know, grab is a way cleaner whiff punish than a downer, especially at 0. And let's say you're not sure at all what's going to happen. Who says you have to even punish it? What if you just waited back here and just shot a laser after his landing and then played from there, you know?
Okay.
So I'm just saying all this to say that, like, you're not always going to know everything. You're not always going to be able to react to everything. But the important part is that, like, you have a reasonable plan for it. And I think having analyzed it, we can agree that doing a rising down air at this particular timing with the information you had was probably not a good decision, right?
Right.
But I'm not saying you should have punished this. I'm just saying, you know, there's many ways to approach it, right?
Okay. Fair
Does that make
enough.
sense?
Yeah. Yes.
Cool. So I feel like this one was an easy hit confirm. So why was this one an easy hit confirm?
There wasn't really much. I mean, beforehand he was just standing, or he was just still.
Well, be specific.
And,
So what exactly was happening?
What was happening was I was spaced right next to him. He was in shield, under pressure.
And then you've already decided to down air at this point, right?
Yes.
So if you've already decided to down air, why not just look at what he's doing while you down air? Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So what does he do while you choose to down air?
Spot dodge.
So if he spot dodges and you know you're down airing, can you tell me what the result of that will be?
I'm gonna hit him with the ending, like active hitbox frames of my down air.
I agree, exactly.
Spot dodge.
So if we already know that, then you already know the down air is guaranteed to hit. And if you know the down air is guaranteed to hit, you can go for the shine. The only tricky part is the percent, but I would say you did that down air, you know, it wasn't rising, it was kind of in the middle, right?
Yeah.
And middle height down air combos to shine even at 0.
Okay.
So do you see how that hit confirm would work?
Yeah.
And this kind of goes back to the concept of reaction points, which is why I wanted to focus on it so much. Because essentially, there's two variables. There's what you're doing and what they're doing. Luckily for you, you already have one of those variables solved because you know exactly what you're planning on doing, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when you go for that down air, you don't need to think about anything besides what is he doing while I'm down airing so I can best make my next decision. Does this make sense?
I think so, yeah. And I guess it makes sense. I just I feel I'm gonna have a hard time doing it. That's pretty much it, because the game moves so fast.
It does. It does. So that's where you have to start thinking about, like, well, what are even the possible options, right? Because, like, let's say you've never played Melee before with with anyone besides, like, the only thing you knew was Falco. If the only thing you knew was Falco, you wouldn't even know if Fox could spot dodge here, right?
Yeah.
And then if you didn't even know, then of course you see this and you're like, well, what the fuck is that? But luckily, you do know what Fox could be doing there, right?
Uh-huh. Okay.
So for what it's worth, do you have any idea why he spot dodged there? Just, as a fun exercise.
Sorry, you cut out for a second. Did you say what he could have done there?
Or like, why was he even spot dodging, do you think? So look at the situation.
Maybe. So he was probably trying to do something else.
Yes, I agree.
Messed
Because spot dodge doesn't really seem like a good option there, right?
Right.
The only thing spot dodge is really good against is shine grab right there.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think it's super likely, and I think it sounds like you agree, that he wasn't planning on going for that, right?
Yeah. So, maybe he was trying to shine out of shield.
Exactly, yeah. He was probably trying to shine out of shield. So if you know that that's a common thing that could happen, then it's much easier to be ready for it when it does happen,
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. No.
Cool. Not to mention that if you use audio cues, things like spot dodge are easier to react to. Obviously on netplay that's harder, but just as an idea. So do you see how you could have reasonably confirmed that hit?
Yes.
Cool. And then the last thing we'll talk about real quick is punish game stuff. So literally all I would do is I would ask myself, okay, so I got this shine, and I'm going to wave dash back, right? Does that make sense so far?
Mm-hmm.
So then I would literally just pause it right here and ask myself, what is the best thing to do here? And I would just go through every option I can think of, because, there's a pretty limited number, right? It's not like you can do more than maybe 10 things max.
Sure.
And I would ask myself all of them, pick the best one, and then once I figure that out, or maybe you have to see if there's a mix-up, right? Maybe it's like, oh, this is the best one if he DIs here, but this is the best one if he DIs there. So I will mix up between this one and that one. Do you see what I mean?
No.
Okay, that's okay. So let's talk about that real quick. Is there a part of it that didn't make sense?
Sure. So, the concept of mix-up, I think, is still a bit vague for me.
I will. 1 second. The page. I'm gonna ask Billy to get me the mix-up video. There's a video I have on mix-ups that I will encourage you to watch. It's an hour-long lesson, but I think it'll teach you a lot about what a mix-up is.
Okay.
But
great.
Just at a very simple level, can you imagine a situation where here's one of the most classic Falco ones. If you they're near the top of the screen,
yes.
And if you go for shine up B, and they DI away from you, the shine up B won't work. But if they DI in, the shine up B will combo. Okay?
Okay.
So in that case, the ideal thing for you is that, well, why wouldn't they just DI away every time?
Because I could shine back air.
Yeah, sure, shine back air, or even just back air without the shine, right?
Oh, right.
Okay. Yeah, either one, right? And then so there, you have yourself a mix-up. Now, of course, what if the shine up B was guaranteed on all DI? Then you would just shine up B every time, right?
Every time, yeah.
Yep. And there are situations where it's probably pretty guaranteed. But for situations where it's not, then you find, oh, well, shine up B is good here unless they do this. So let me find a counter to that. And then you would mix up between those based on what you perceive the reward to be, right?
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Okay, yes, it does. So the mix-ups that we were talking about here were DI mix-ups.
Yeah, in this particular case. But in general, it can mean a ton of things. But essentially, if you want to improve your punish game, and we can do this more in the future, of course, but I would literally ask you to pause it here and just go through everything you think would be reasonable. It could be short hop up air, full jump shine wave line back, full jump shine double jump forward. It could be short hop down air. You could probably name 10, 15 options, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the idea is that once you get good at a couple situations, those will snowball so that, maybe this one we'd have to talk about for 30 minutes to figure out a perfect answer. But maybe next time you see a similar situation, you only need to think about it for 2 minutes to come up with a good answer, right?
Mm.
And then you get to the point where me and Ginger are talking, and it takes us 3 seconds to come up with the right answer in our lessons,
Okay.
But that's because we've been thinking about punish game trees for 20 years, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And then the other thing I mentioned earlier, which you could do here, is you also ask yourself, was there anything better I could have done than Shine Wave Dash Back? I think we can agree that Shine Wave Dash Back was probably the right choice because he was on the back side of you. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't stop and ask yourself, hey, is there any reason I wouldn't do that? Like, is there any value in doing a different option? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I can think of something too.
Yeah. And maybe here, there might be, there might not be. But in other spots, like, I think there definitely is value in not just going for the wave dash in their direction every time,
Yeah.
Cool. So that is a pretty good summary of what I think should happen. I highly recommend you watch through this match again and do two things for me. Well, three things, really. I want you to go through each of those three things. And I'm hoping that I gave you enough information that you can do this yourself. And I'm not saying I won't help. It's like, if you have timestamps or questions, feel free to message them to me.
Okay.
But I'm hoping that by focusing on, like, the ideas rather than the specifics and just, like, holding your hand through them, that will help you more long term.
Okay.
So we're going to do three things, right? We're going to look for all the spots where you chose to kind of just rising, downer, and neutral. And I just want you to think about them. Just in the context that we already did, right?
Okay.
So, what was I reacting to? What was I reading? Was downer even a good option? What are some other things I could have done? And again, this should all be based on what? It should be based on what you think the fox could do, right?
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yep.
And then for the hit confirms, I want you to just ask yourself if it was hit confirmable. And if it was, how or why, right? In this case, it was, I saw him spot dodge, and I knew I was down airing at a mid timing, so I know it's going to combo.
Okay.
But, that's not always realistic, right? And then for the combos, if you really want to work on your combo tree, you can do what we just described. I think that's probably the least important one to spend time on, though. I think spending time on the first two will net you the most value. But if you find yourself, while you're watching, thinking, hey, what could I have done better? Like, kind of approach it the way we talked about it.
Okay. Cool. Okay, so I have look for all the spots where you chose to rising dare in this VOD. And determine, was I reacting here? Was I reading?
And what is it that you were reacting, or what is it that you were reading, Right. And also ask yourself, was it even a good downer, And ask yourself, what did I think Fox was going to do? Or what could have Fox have done? And if you can think of some things that, downer is not good against, ask yourself, what should I have done instead, right?
Okay.
Just kind of go through that whole flow chart, I guess, is what I'm saying.
Okay. And then second thing was asking, is a hit that I land confirmable?
Especially on the ones you missed, right?
Okay.
But even on the ones you hit, if you did confirm it, ask yourself, did I actually confirm it, or was that just like a lucky guess, right? Does that make sense?
Yes. Okay. And then for the combos, you said not the most important.
1 second. Can you look at this real quick?
Oh, yes. In
the stream.
Yes. Looking.
What happened here? Look at this.
Oh, the stream is frozen for me.
Oh, sorry. Okay, that makes sense.
I was looking at it.
Okay.
There we go. There it is.
Okay, cool.
Oh, so yeah.
So what happened there?
It was just me not hit confirming.
Yeah, but
failure.
How did the hit confirm play out?
So okay, how did it play out?
Yeah, talk me through it.
Okay, so he's in the corner. I land this dare, which I think should have been
or the laser, right?
Oh, I'm sorry. So the laser lands. He tries to shine out of shield again.
Aha! So this is actually an exact copy of the last one, right?
Yeah.
So you went for shine grab because you thought he was still shielding, but we actually knew he got hit, right?
Right.
So I just want you to essentially do that over and over for all the situations.
Okay.
And you will quickly realize that there might be some patterns, and hit confirming might be for you, oh, there's only 4 or 5 situations I'm not confirming in, but actually overall I'm pretty good at it. Or you might find I'm not good at it anywhere, and time to learn, right?
Okay.
I don't know what you'll find. That's kind of up to you.
All right. So it has been an hour. I'm sure you're aware.
And I need to pick up my car, but
okay.
Hopefully you feel good about this. I thought overall your gameplay was actually pretty good, by the way. I think you downplayed your play a little bit.
All right.
Yeah,
great.
I actually thought you did a lot of really good things. There's just a lot of situations where I think you're not sure what to look for yet,
Okay. Yeah.
And you kind of try to cover those up by going, okay, well, if I'm down there at about the right timing, it'll probably work. But what we're going to try to do is get you to figure out what the right timing actually is and why, based on what you're reacting to, what you're reading, what you think the fox will do.
Okay.
Make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. So that's what I'll be working on for the next couple weeks.
Yep.
We're scheduled 2 weeks from now, and then I guess we can follow up and talk about it more.
Yeah, and like I said, in the meantime, if you don't want to wait till next lesson, message me your thoughts on, if you feel like you can do it on your own, do it. But if as you're doing it, you're like, man, I don't know what I think of this, I don't know what I react to or don't react to or whatever, just message it to me and it'll probably be an easy answer.
Okay, great. Yeah, no, I'm definitely going to work on it. I will admit I am a little confused, but it's like a little bit still nebulous for me.
Yeah, I put some pretty big stuff on you, I'd say.
All right.
But I wouldn't have done that if I didn't think what you were already doing was pretty good.
Okay, great. Well, that's reassuring. Yeah, I'm gonna try to work on it, and then I'll message you.
And like I said, you can just go through the recorded video or your notes, and whatever seems nebulous, just message me and be like, hey, what exactly do you mean by this? How does this work? And I'll be happy to answer.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Sammy.
Yeah, no problem.
Good luck with your car. Hope it works out.
Have a great day, and thanks for starting a bit earlier. It was very helpful.
You too, for sure.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.